What if I told you your dog can tell when someone shouldn't be trusted, and not because of some mystical sixth sense, not because they're reading bad energy, and definitely not because they're psychic. What your dog is actually doing is way more believable, way more grounded in science, and honestly, way more impressive. You've probably seen it happen. Someone new walks into your home, and your dog does something subtle. They don't lunge. They don't bark. They just pause. Maybe they hang back. Maybe they stay close to you. Maybe they watch that person a little too carefully. And even if you can't explain why, part of you feels it too. Like your dog noticed something before you did. Most people hear that and jump straight to, dogs can sense bad people. The internet loves that idea. It sounds dramatic. It sounds magical. But the truth is more interesting than magic, because your dog isn't reading auras. Your dog is reading behavior. Fast. Constantly. And with a level of attention most humans never realize is happening. When your dog meets someone, they're not just looking at a face. They're reading the entire body in motion. The way a person walks toward them. The tension in their shoulders. Whether their hands are loose or stiff, whether their movements are calm and predictable or sharp and erratic. Dogs are incredibly sensitive to motion patterns, and they pick up on tiny irregularities almost instantly. At the same time, they're also using scent in ways we can barely understand. A dog's nose can pick up shifts in body chemistry, linked to stress, fear, and tension. They're not labeling someone as good or evil, but they are detecting the physical signs that a person is uneasy, agitated, or off balance. To your dog, that matters. And then there's the part people miss completely. Your dog is watching you. Your tone, your posture, your breathing, the way your body responds to the other person. Dogs spend years learning our patterns, so when something changes in you, even slightly, they notice. If you stiffen up around someone, your dog logs it. If your energy shifts, your dog sees it before you've fully processed it yourself. Now here's where it gets wild, because this isn't just theory. Researchers have actually tested whether dogs judge people based on trust, reliability, and even social behavior. In one well-known study out of Kyoto, dogs were placed in a room with two containers. A researcher pointed to one of them, and inside was food. The dog ran over, found the food, and learned something simple. This person's gesture means something useful. Then came the second round. The same researcher pointed again, but this time the container was empty. No reward, no food, just a broken expectation. Then came round 3. The researcher pointed once again, and this time there really was food in the container. The dog looked at the person, looked at the container, and didn't move. Not because the dog didn't want the food, not because the dog was confused, but because the dog had already made a judgment. This person is no longer reliable. And here's the part that makes the whole thing even more fascinating. When a new person came in and pointed instead, the dogs followed the gesture immediately. So they hadn't lost faith in people in general. They hadn't stopped understanding pointing. They had singled out one specific individual as untrustworthy. Think about what that means. In a single bad interaction, the dog updated its opinion of one human and carried that information forward. That's not superstition. That's evaluation. Another experiment pushed this even further. Dogs watched their owner struggle with a container and then ask a nearby person for help. In one version, the person helped. In another, the person deliberately refused. A neutral person sat nearby and did nothing. Afterward, both the unhelpful person and the neutral person offered the dog a treat. When the stranger had refused to help the owner, many dogs rejected that person's food and chose the neutral person instead. That detail matters. The stranger hadn't done anything bad to the dog. The dog wasn't protecting its own food. It was reacting to how someone treated its human. In other words, Dogs weren't just noticing direct interactions with themselves. They were paying attention to social behavior around the people they care about. And maybe the most surprising part is this. The dogs didn't seem especially eager to reward helpfulness, but they did seem willing to avoid unhelpfulness. That tells us something important. Dogs may be especially tuned to negative social signals. From an evolutionary perspective, that makes sense. Missing a threat is more costly than missing a kindness. There's also evidence that dogs may distinguish between a person who is simply mistaken and a person who is intentionally deceptive. In another study, dogs watched a treat get moved from one place to another. Then a person pointed to the wrong location. If that person had seen the treat being moved, the dogs were more likely to ignore the point and choose correctly on their own. But if the person hadn't seen the switch, the dogs were more likely to follow the mistaken cue. That suggests dogs may not just be tracking outcomes. They may be sensitive to intention. Now, to be fair, the science is not as simple as dogs always know. Some more recent research found that in more abstract situations, like watching strangers behave generously or selfishly toward another dog, pet dogs didn't show a clear preference. And that matters, because it tells us dogs probably aren't sitting around making moral judgments about every random person they see. But when the situation directly affects them, or affects you, the person they're bonded with, that's when their social radar seems to light up. So no, your dog probably isn't a mind reader. They're not detecting evil. They're not scanning souls. But they are doing something extraordinary. They're collecting information from movement, scent, tone, memory, and social interaction, and then making a decision. That pause you see when your dog meets someone new, that moment where they hold back, watch, and wait, that's not random. That's not drama. That's your dog running a real-time trust assessment based on thousands of years of learning how humans behave. And maybe that's the most amazing part of all. Dogs have lived beside us long enough to understand that people are complicated. Some help. Some mislead. Some create safety. Some create tension. And instead of giving up on us, dogs evolved to pay attention. So the next time your dog instantly loves someone, that says something. But the next time your dog quietly decides they don't, maybe pay attention. Because they may not be sensing something supernatural. They may just be noticing something real before you do.